Thank you for finding us again. No stoplights. We probably should rename the podcast Work in Progress. Every podcast we've done for the last 3 or 4, we talk about the work in progress. It is indeed a work in progress, and the only way it's progressing is the courtesy and kindness and generosity of our sponsors. And before we get to our guests, I want to thank our sponsors: Florence County Legislative Delegation, PLC Commercial Real Estate, McCall Farms, Micky Pepsi of Florence, Carolina Bank, Francis Marion University, Marlboro MPD Electric Co-op, and Victors of Florence. Thank you, because we're not progressing without your support. And you can see behind me, it's a little fancier than it was in a previous podcast or two. It'll get even fancier as we continue this work in progress. And thank you. And I mean that sincerely. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for finding us on YouTube. You know, the partnership we have with YouTube is different than any partnership I've ever had, because I'm in a partnership. I'm at the mercy of a group of men and women who I have no clue where they are. I don't know if they exist. We hear they do, but Google owns YouTube, and a lot of our content is on YouTube. I grew up in a world where if in the matter of business relationships, you get in your car and you drive down the street and you see your client, your customer, your supplier. That ain't the case with YouTube and Google. I hear there are real people that work at YouTube and Google. I know there are real people that work at PLC Commercial Real Estate. 2 of them are here with us today, Chris Scott and Rhett Spencer of PLC Commercial Real Estate. How are you guys?
Great.
Good to see you again. I appreciate the patience, and I want to say this sincerely. Appreciate the patience that you've shown in allowing us to evolve from living out of a suitcase to now being in our own full-fledged studio. Thank you, and I mean that to both of you and your 2 partners as well, who will join us probably sooner than later. Let's get to the matter at hand. Rhett, Chris, I'll ask either of you guys to comment on this. The big news story in November, whether we like it or not, was not the Clemson-Carolina football game. Now, Gamecock fans want to talk about it a lot. Clemson fans, Rhett, don't want to talk about it quite as much. But the big story of November was Donald Trump getting reelected. That sounds crazy. Reelected president of the United States. You guys are in the commercial real estate business. Chris, Rhett, optimism, pessimism. What is the mood and sentiment of real estate in general, knowing that a real estate developer is about to become president of the United States again?
I'll let you. I'll let you.
I'll lead off. First of all, congrats. This is cool.
Thank you.
New place is great, and you shared some off air. You shared some of your ideas.
Oh, I got a busy head. I don't have the funds nor the ability, but I got a lot of ideas. So
it's exciting.
Thank you, and I mean that sincerely to both of you.
Congrats on the podcast. I'm sorry you're desperate enough to have us on here, but
no desperation there, bro. I'll assure you.
But this is great. So I'll not bring in politics in it. We'll just talk about there's an election and what have we seen afterward in the real estate market. And I would say there has been an uptick in calls and energy. For whatever reason, you can debate that, but you can't debate. I don't think you can debate a sense of excitement, urgency to get in the real estate market. I talked to people all over the region. One big group that had a bunch, and I mean some very, very large warehouses that were sitting there with a lot of questions like, what in the world are we going to do? No calls. Just this was going to be a problem. And within 24 hours, they were receiving calls.
Wow.
Onshoring, reshoring. And these are 500,000, million square foot buildings. So, I mean, that's a pretty good litmus test, if you ask me, as far as what people see coming. I think they see demand, they see jobs coming back, and business, maybe a pro-business environment. And at the end of the day, people got to have a place to work, they got to have a place to live, they got to have a place to store stuff. That's real estate, and so from that perspective, I would say it's been very. And
that's encouraging, Rhett. Right? I mean, I'm not asking you to be partisan. I mean, I do that. I want you guys to be neutral. And I mean, we all live in a transactional world, and we need more friends than we do enemies. But reality is reality. And Trump has shown to be a very business friendly executive officer.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even look at the stock market too. I mean, quickly after the election, I feel like everyone's, stocks were also rising too. So it's not saying that the real estate market and stock market correlate, but it seems that after, once it was announced, there was a pretty strong correlation that people were very optimistic. and the market followed.
Does it matter to either of you guys in your line of work? I mean, credit is the lifeblood of commercial real estate. Access to credit is essential to being successful in the real estate. Does it matter, and can you imagine it would impact either of your lives if the government gets serious about its debt? Because we're talking about escalation of price. We're talking about inflation. We're talking about, spending money we don't have, which eventually leads to inflation. I'll get to new construction in a minute because I think that's a place where you really see inflation take place. But when you guys run your business, do you at times think about, wow, I mean, interest rates are predicated on debt and a lot of economic cycles come into play. I guess long story short, do you believe it's in your best interest as PLC Commercial Real Estate that Trump is appointing a team, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy in particular, to try and right-size government and harness and control some of this debt?
I'm a history major, so I'll go back to the little quote I remember, which is the business of America is business. I can't remember who said that. Might have been a Republican, might have been a Democrat. I think it was Calvin Coolidge.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
It was.
I think that's right. I look at it from that perspective. What's good for business, probably going to be good for real estate. Like I said just a minute ago, people got to have a place to do work, and that's real estate. And we do want to talk about real estate values and where we are in the market and PD. I think that's an important part of what we do here with you. But you look at real estate at any part of the cycle of real estate investing, whether it be what credit's available, what banks are charging. That impacts what you can borrow, but that also impacts, where those deposits are, impacts what's a reasonable return to expect. That's a big part. What's a reasonable return to expect on real estate if you're going to make the investment in it? When you're getting 5.5% in a money market account, it makes it more difficult. So yeah, it matters a lot. I would say what's good for business is, generally speaking, good for real estate.
Rhett, how important is it? And I'll get away from politics in a second, but it's a big deal that Trump wins and there's been an uptick in business. How sensitive is business to the interest rates? We had super low interest rates for a long, I would argue too long a period of time. There was a correction. I get it. But that led to kind of a slowdown in the economy. When you guys try to evaluate where interest rates are now, where they'll be 6 months from now, where they may be a year from now, how important is that as you try to project 6 months or a year down the road?
I think it's a dangerous game trying to predict what they're going to be and making a investment decision, hoping that it will be, come down or whatnot. But it is kind of the game we do play when you start when you finance these deals. Eventually, you will have to refinance them, and you do need to take into account what you might think that's going to be. But no, I'd say business is definitely sensitive to what they are, especially when the rates were very low. There was an extreme amount of activity. And when things started when they started rising rather rapidly, I remember talking to a few brokers in the upstate, they had some fast food restaurants out of the ground, plumbing, concrete, and they stopped. It was a national QSR franchisee said, stop everything and we'll come back to it. So it definitely affects business.
Because borrowing money at 7% is a lot different than borrowing money at 3.5%. But you got a banking background, Chris.
It's also not just borrowing. It's what are you competing? I've never been so thankful. I will say an answer prayers for a deal that we did not do. We had it lined up. Rhett had done a fantastic job, had identified a piece of property, met with the landowner, got the permitting approved, had a jam up national tenant ready to go. And long and short, we pulled the plug on it because of what we're talking about right here. And had we not, we would be, no question,
we'd be stuck.
Underwater.
We'd be stuck.
We'd be underwater. And so it's not just what it costs to borrow the money, it's what you're competing against. And what looked good 3 years ago, I don't know what it's going to look like in a year, but it's different right now. I promise you that.
Okay. And
it makes a good point about, I don't know, it'd be an interesting conversation to have about fixed rates and how far out we want to go and what we want to be doing.
But you've got a banking background. Yeah. I mean, you come from the world of finance, so obviously you got to be very attentive to where rates look to be. I mean, you don't run the Fed. I don't run the Fed. They don't ask me what the rate needs to be.
They've never called me.
Well, they should. They should. So, and that leads to the matter that we can talk a lot about here. When you print more dollars, you devalue the ones that are already out there. That leads to inflation. That's my economics lesson for the day. The private sector does not create inflation. Government does by increasing the money supply. And all of a sudden we wake up one day and construction costs are through the roof. Building materials are through the roof. How have you guys navigated the cost of new construction compared to leasing properties that have already been built? I mean, has it been a paradigm shift? Has there been kind of a complete change of property used to lease for X, now it lease for Y because new construction has become so expensive?
I think that's a perfect segue to, let's talk about existing property values. And so you got to look at replacement costs. Let's just take, okay, you own a 10,000 foot warehouse and you've owned it for 5 years. You've got a basis in it. We don't care what it is. It's X. And we go build one, or office building, whatever it is, and we go build it and it's Y. Right now, Y is going to be a lot more than X. Does that mean that you should take less rent for X for your warehouse? I would say no.
No.
I would say the market dictates you still should be at,
Supply and demand.
blank dollars a foot. And to not push the lease rates on your warehouse to the same price or close to it. I'm not saying you can't take, of course you take into account quality and it speed up a little bit, second generation space, but by and large, you've got to continue. You've always got to be reevaluating existing properties to determine what will the market bear, not what somebody will take, but what will the market bear. And if we're not pushing on that, which we have not been in the PD, I don't think we've been doing that. And I think
explain that, Chris. Somebody elaborate on what you don't think we've done that well in the PD.
I think we can push rents higher in the PD. And that sounds, I'm not trying to gouge anybody. I'm just saying we've got to recognize that people want to come here. They want to do business. But you got to make a margin. We got to make a margin. We've got to promote the properties that are here. And we're not trying to be Greenville. We're not trying to be Charleston. Those are different markets. But we can be PD and we can be aware of, what it costs to build a new building. If we're getting the same rate for a warehouse that somebody got 5 years ago, I don't care it's 5 years older, that's a loss. We have lost. We've lost the value that creates. $1 a foot, $10,000, a 10,000 foot building, you do the math, you create a lot of value just by addressing the rental rate. You don't have to do anything else to the building. And that's something we have talked about as a company is, I don't want to say educate like we're geniuses, we're not, but trying to talk to our customers about, hey, there's value in your property you don't even know about because of what rental rates are doing, and pay attention to what's going on in these other markets. We're not Charleston, but we're not,
I got you. So Rhett, let's stay there. We're not Charleston. We're not Greenville. Maybe we're not a lot of places, but we are Florence. We are the PD. We are this region of the state. Have we shorted ourselves? You're a young guy, and young people can live anywhere in the world they want to live. I'm an older guy. Chris isn't quite as old as I, but we're kind of set in our ways. We don't look around and see different and better opportunities. Right. You're here. You're from here. You decided to come back here.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, but what do we need to do to be more aggressive in? This is a weird way to say it. Thinking more of ourselves and who we are and where we live. Because I do think it's a phenomenon. I think Chris is onto something here. The poor old PD. You know how we are. We're not Greenville. We're not Charleston. We're not Myrtle Beach. We're not this or that. But damn it, we are what we are. So how do we maximize that?
No, that's a great question. And correct. Yeah, actually, after college, I moved to Charleston for about 4 years, and then I did decide to move home, and I don't regret one day of that. So just kind of thinking about how we, retain our young people or how we attract more. It definitely starts with employment and having good employment, but it also, what do we provide for entertainment, places for gathering, to meet other young people, or outdoor spaces, a rig. We don't have a river, or we do. We have the PD, but we don't really utilize that. We don't have any type of ocean or any sort of natural attraction, if you will, outside. We have some beautiful outdoor places, but not like a beach or a Shim Creek or something like that to take advantage of. So just using what we already do have, nature trails, and just finding more ways for younger people to gather and be around each other in addition to employment. Yeah. Jump in, Chris.
Well, I was going to say, I want to make sure I said it correctly. I'm not bashing on us. I think we have our own identity. I just want to make sure that's clear. I I want to live in Greenville, we move to Greenville. If we want to be in Charleston, move to Charleston. We want you here in the PD. We just want to take care of what we got here. And go talk to Greg Robinson.
Okay, and let's. This is interesting because
we got everything we need right here.
I'm gonna get on my high horse for a second. We're not as beautiful as we could be. We're not as aesthetically pleasing as we could be. We've not prioritized green space as much as we could. And I've argued with city and county council about ways to incentivize property owners to make their property more aesthetically pleasing. I don't say prettier, but to make it more aesthetically pleasing. And there's no way you can't tell me that commercial property isn't more valuable if we add to the quality of life and aesthetics of a community. It doesn't necessarily hit the bottom line, Chris and Rhett, but it's there and it's real and it's tangible and it's all value.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, if people want, demand, people coming in, people want to move a business here, people want to rent an apartment here, they want to build a house here. That demand's it's going to drive things. And yes, those attributes are going to help.
So how does a commercial real estate company that is homegrown, that have heavily invested in their community, how do they encourage others to take this a little more? And I'm not being critical. I'm serious. Well, maybe I am. If I am, I'm sorry. But to take the beautification side and to take the quality of life side, and take the amenity side, it seems to me that we've had somewhat of a farmer's mentality. 2 + 2 = 4. Well, it does every time. But how do you make 2 + 2 = 4 + 2 = 6 + 2 = 8? Addition makes all of our lives better. It makes taxes cheaper. And Greenville has done that. Charleston has done that. I go to Pawleys Island a bunch. Very aesthetically pleasing. How do we encourage? And I'm not asking you to throw anybody under the bus, but we need some political leadership. We need some business leadership that says, hey, we're doing a good job here, but we've got to do a better job there.
It's tricky.
I think leadership is, I think it's a great time to be in Florence. I don't even think it's a question. I don't think you're being critical. I think it's being a steward of what we got. And there's opportunity out. I mean, we got more opportunity here and it's funny. You talk to people in other parts of the state, guess where they're interested in doing business? I mean, they hear what's going on. They hear about the battery plant. We had Cheney Brothers. Was that yesterday?
A couple days ago.
I mean, there's good stuff going on. I go back and Greg and his team are doing a great job promoting, just getting out and promoting. But I guess it's just being a steward of every aspect of it. Yeah, we need more green space. You and I have talked specifically about several specific places that I pass on the way driving.
That I think would enhance our communities.
They need to be cleaned up. This needs to be repaired, and it should be done with a carrot and like, hey, we're going to help you. I mean, the city had a great program. I'm going back a ways. We talked about this. If I'm getting off on a tangent,
no, please do.
They had a facade program, and it was basically, we've got a program. Here's the application. You fill it out, and you get it. Here are the repairs that need to be made to the facades. These are some of the old buildings downtown. And you make those repairs and the city will pay for X amount of it. And guess what? Everybody did it. But if you don't, then we're going to penalize you. And I hate that. I don't like the overbearing feel of that. But I think there's a responsibility that comes if you go to the property tax record and it says you're the owner, then there's a responsibility to take care of your property.
It's a little bit like Mars Anderson and I served in the county council together, and Mars convinced me if you own a dog, it's your job to care for it.
Yeah.
If you own a piece of property, it's your job to care for it. And I think, the more we care for property, the more we add value. The one thing I like about the things you guys are willing to talk about is it's not just about 100 acres located here. It's not just about topography. It's not just about stormwater drainage. I mean, that's critically important, but there are other entanglements that we need to work on and improve on. Rhett, kind of where do you see? I mean, we're the end of this year. I don't want to ask you how much business did y'all do and how much money did y'all make. I'm not arguing that. But from where we were and what we've seen in the past year, you can't predict nor project. But I mean, what are you kind of preparing for in 2025? What do you hope to see happen in the next year related to commercial property?
I'd probably categorize it as optimistic. This year was interesting. I mean, it wasn't a bad year, but I wouldn't say it wasn't our, best year ever.
A lot of uncertainty.
There
to a lot of people.
A lot of uncertainty, a lot of things worried about what November was going to do, going back to earlier in the show. But I would say it's optimistic. and just being prepared for the opportunities. Chris says it all the time. There's plenty of opportunities out there. So how do you make the most of them?
Chris, what do you see on the horizon? You've done this a while. I tend to get overly optimistic or jump off a bridge. I mean, that's kind of my nature.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just the way I'm wired, man. Either I'm going broke or I got more money than you know what. And the reality is neither is probably true. But you've done this a long time. Where do you see us headed in relation to commercial property?
I think complete optimism. I mean, we volume wise, and I'm all right. Well, shameless plug, PLC Commercial. We had a partners meeting this afternoon. Volume, listings, interest, inquiry, closings across the board. Everything looks great. I mean, more than we would have expected. Very, very thankful. The community's been great. Response has been great. So we're super excited from PLC Commercial. That's part of that answer. Okay. But the bigger picture, I think there's just almost unlimited potential here at the PD. Not to throw anybody on the bus. I think we've missed the boat for a while. And I think we gotta scramble. We gotta get after it and catch up. But I go back to so many of the simple attributes that we've got here. We've got people, we've got employment base, we've got interstate crossing with interstate that connects you. I mean, you know all the statistics. And so, I mean, you've got huge employers here. I mean, think about the companies that are headquartered here or that have such a substantial presence. I mean, national, international recognized names, and it's all right there. And when people come in town, they see that. They're like, dang, this is a good place to be.
Schools.
So schools are, I'm very optimistic.
It does seem that some things that we lagged and struggled with are getting better. Mm-hmm. And I'm encouraged by that. Any particular area that you guys service? Is it the urban area? Is it the rural area? Do you see a little bit of both, a little bit of all? Is there enough property? I mean, I hear that sometimes, that we've not done as good a job as we possibly could have done in zoning and planning and preparing for future growth. Any comments you care to give at that? Because I learned a long time ago in planning and local politics, don't you tell me what I can do with my land, but you make damn sure they don't do that with theirs. And that's just the nature of planning and zoning. And I believe this. I think planning and zoning can be a friend to development. And I'm not talking about zealous politicians trying to tell you what you can do with every acre you own, but I do believe in where you guys come from, organized planning and zoning, some consistency about the way we do things is important. You guys kind of are care to give a comment on that.
Design standards, that's kind of going to your previous comment.
Explain. A lot of people don't know what that means. Say that again.
Just say like design standards for new projects moving forward. If we were trying to change the way our city looks and our buildings and our properties and how they feel and work, it starts with, how they look. And, what kind of, you drive down Irby Street and you see all these signs. It looks like a NASCAR, pit stop with all these signs in your face. And it's just, eventually you have to you look at other cities, they've done a good job of keeping the signs at a, less, trying to think of the right word, but less in your face, I guess. Just everything looks a little more cleaner and organized.
And I think there's value in that. And that goes back to this transition that I think we've got to, and once again, a lot of Southerners are apprehensive of government and nature. I mean, that's who we are. I don't know why, but I just think if you polled Americans, Southerners would be more cautious about trusting government. But I think you guys have done a good job in building friendships and partnerships and relationships with city and county and state government. I do want to touch on one thing that I think will interest you guys. I spend about an hour every week with Jay Jordan, Phillip Lowe, and Mike Rickenbaugh. And I've never heard this come out of their mouth, but South Carolina is going to put on the table a 0% income tax. Texas has a 0% income tax. California has a 0%, California doesn't. They make up for Texas and Florida 0 income tax. But I got to believe that if South Carolina considers a 0% income tax, that leads to growth. That leads to more people coming here. Businesses have to support those, the residential growth. When you hear South Carolina General Assembly thinking about kicking the tires on a 0% state income tax, what do you say?
Come on, let's go.
Where do I vote?
Yeah, I mean, On that, I'm not well versed enough in it to say anything like that, other than I look at it as pro business. I mean, less taxes means it's easier to come in and, you can spend your money on something else, which is good, I guess. I would think so. So yeah, I'd be for it. I love those. I mean, I will say, going back to one just quick comment you made about leadership, when you mentioned those three gentlemen, and then you mentioned the relationship. Yeah, we've got great relationships with city officials, with county officials. I think the leadership there is what Rhett has come around to, very pro business, very kind of like what you and I talked about, what Drew used to say. Drew would tell you no in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Talking about Drew Griffin, no, we can't do this, but why don't we try this?
The power of yes.
Let's do something different. We'll get there. And I do think the city's getting the area, the PD, from local city officials through the county on up to the delegation in Columbia. Yeah, they're pushing and pulling for us, and that we're going to we already are benefiting from that. So no tax that's
0% income tax.
Worry about our roads without any
we got to make
tax dollars.
some income to make that really matter.
I mean, I just think, here's what I think, guys. And I mean, this is your podcast, not mine, but I think it's very interesting. I think South Carolina stuck on about 3.5 million people forever. I mean, that was kind of our number. We grew a little bit, but it was about 3.5 million. And we went from 3.5 million to 5 million, seemed like in a month. I mean, I know we didn't, but it seems like that we were trying to catch up. And I think the gas tax was a part of that. Obviously, if you got 5 million people living in a state, it's going to wear out your roads quicker than 3.5 million people living in a state. And I've challenged Jay, Mike, and Philip, are you ready to govern a state of 7 million people? Because I've seen projections. I've seen what they call inflow of population, and it looks to me like that we're going to end up at about 7 million, and we're going to end up having a lot of what I call infill growth from the coast. And I mean, you can't build a house on top of a house. You got to go somewhere else and build it. And I think we are all going to benefit from this kind of backfill growth. Are we ready for that? I mean, have we done the necessary, infrastructure? How important is it for you guys to coordinate with? I mean, it's not, you don't build roads, but they don't sell property. You talked about having these relationships and partnerships. How important is it for you to kind of know what they're thinking, but just as well for them to kind of know some of the issues you're encountering, some of the challenges that you see coming your way?
I think it's extremely important.
Yeah.
Do you care to address any of the challenges or encounters that are problematic?
Even just on the broader scale with the growth we see coming in our area, you've got to be prepared for it, because you don't want to just start growing immediately and then saying, man, I wish I had done this differently. I wish I'd made this 4-lane roads a long time ago. And now there's already people living on, just using a road, for example. But you want to try to have proactive thinking to accommodate, to be ready for the growth when it comes your way.
You don't try to get homeowners the day before the hurricane hits.
Right.
It's just kind of what you're saying there. And I totally agree. I mean, I didn't mean to.
It just creates traffic problems. I mean, you start having hundreds of people living in an area that used to have 4 people living in that area with these big land tracts. All of a sudden, you have a major traffic issue, safety issues, sewer capacity, all kinds of issues. Even just in town traffic is picked up. 5 o'clock it's a lot different than it used to be 10 years ago.
I think it goes back to what Chris said earlier. This is a great place to be. And now the nation has found out that South Carolina is a great place to be, and they're coming. And I don't see them stopping. And I mean that sincerely, but we've got to be prepared, and we've got to be accommodating, and we got to be problem solvers when these businesses are looking around thinking about properties or buildings or whatnot.
It's problems for sure.
No doubt about it.
He gets tired of me saying this. I'll take good problems, and these are good problems. You got too many people coming in, capacity constraints, worries about roads, that sort of thing. Yeah. They're issues, and we've got some, but you've documented them well. We all understand roads are an issue. How many people have you heard complain about the transition from Georgia 95 to South? I mean, that's people have been saying that for 20 years. Well, that's fine. But there's a lot of people coming into South Carolina.
And I think there's got to be,
problem.
And Hank Williams Jr. had a song called Attitude Adjustment. I think there's an attitude adjustment happening in South Carolina, that we're not a slow Southern state anymore. Yep. We're a dynamic economy. We're a fast-growing economy. I think when I got sworn in as lieutenant governor, we were the 26th most populated state in America. We'll probably be 20th or 21st come 2030 census, and that's something to be proud of. But you got to be prepared for it.
Yeah, it's a great
fastest
problem.
growing counties. The port. I've had the real pleasure of being a part of the South Carolina Ports Authority. They've got an ambassador program. If you ever get asked to do, you might have already done it. It's been great. It's been eye opening. We started in Charleston. We went to Inland Port in Greer last month. I don't know, 2 weeks ago. We're going to Dillon here. And what they do, and they break down as far as the volume of goods coming into South Carolina and what they're planning on, what they're 20, and they have, as they said, they have to plan on a 30-year, that's their outlook. They're planning for 30 years. It's crazy what they see coming.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, and it is great.
Ready.
So let's conclude with this. If somebody's looking to buy a piece of property, if somebody needs help speculating on a piece of property, if somebody ends up with a piece of property, have no idea what it's worth or what its highest and best use is, how does that process work? Do they pick up the phone and call you, go to the website? I mean, it walked me through, the Cliff Note version, but there's a man or woman out there looking for a commercial property. There's a man or woman out there trying to sell a commercial property. You want them to call your team. So how does that process initiate and kind of sort of what does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, there's several ways you can get a hold of us.
You can tell them call you or call me.
You can call our office. We all work together. No, but yeah, you can find us online, PLC Commercial, Google, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it.
Correct.
All our listings are listed on several online listing services, and we go to conferences. So we're very easy to get a hold of.
Yeah.
What is the area, Chris? Do you guys focus on a specific area, or is there, have car will travel?
If we, I guess this will sound right. I don't know if it'll sound right or not. Yeah, if we're doing the same transactions a year from now that we're doing now, then I would say we've missed an opportunity. So we're actively looking. We just Ken Jackson did a great job facilitating some listings and traction in Dillon, and we're really big on Dillon, that area with the Inland Port. And Ken's one of our partners. You obviously know, y'all are friends. And then John Etheridge is our other partner. So I want to make sure we mention everybody. But we want to be in Dillon, and we want to be in Hartsville, and we want to be in Darlington, and we are. We just took a new listing in Hartsville last week. So we're excited about that, but we're also looking at, we've got investors that are asking us to look at properties in Jacksonville and North Carolina, other communities as well. So we're here. We live here. We love here. We got our kids go to school. This is home.
I know you do, and I know you are.
But we also we're aware there's opportunity, and some of that's taking people here and bringing them opportunities elsewhere. If they're not available here now, it's also going to other places and bringing them back here. So.
And thank y'all. And I mean that sincerely. Rhett, before let's get out of here, I got to do this. I got to do it.
I know what this is.
Because I knew your family. Your family and I go way back. Your grandfather was a great friend of my dad. I'm a friend of your dad. Big Tiger fans.
Absolutely.
I'm a Gamecock fan. Here's my theory. You ready? Neither team knew how to win the game.
It was pretty rough.
They kind of played around with one another for about 3 quarters. And the South Florence kid said, as we say in the country, I win it my damn self.
That's right.
And he kind of, sort of, single-handedly won it for South Carolina.
Well, if we had to lose to the Gamecocks, at least it's to a Florentine. So that's a little bit.
I laugh at my
our Tiger, but if we had to get beat by the Gamecocks, I'm glad Lenore's was.
And I felt that way. I'm from Pamplico. Corey Groover was a Clemson Tiger, Hannah Pamplico Red Raider, and I said, well, if I never got to lose we've lost to y'all a lot more than y'all have lost to us. I laugh at my friends who went to South Florence and are big Clemson fans. Because they're like torn. They don't know. It's hilarious to me. Like, oh, damn, Lenore's. I didn't mind you doing that with the Bruins, but I don't want you doing that. But he had a great game. And I think all of Florence and the PD should be extremely proud.
We signed the big defensive tackle from South Florence.
Yeah, Clemson did. Amari Adams. Yeah. We tried to flip him. We tried our best.
That is to see a local guy go and get like that on national TV.
And the national credibility he's now getting is great to see.
Yeah. It is. And so thank you to both of you. And that sincerely appreciate your patience. We are in our new studio. There will be some additional improvements that you'll see in the next, 2 or 3 weeks. I'm looking at Dave Baker behind the glass. We got a fancy glass. You guys see this now.
Yeah.
If you haven't been in
before we were living out of a suitcase. Fred Carter, president of Francis Marion University, was kind enough to let us live out of a suitcase inside one of his buildings, but we have stepped out and we got us a fancy glass and cameras and lights and all everywhere. Thank y'all. And I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
That's the economics of work right there. You got going, you grew, you need a bigger space.
If anybody out there needs access to a podcast studio, we will be taking inquiries. We may sign a contract with these guys and let them market our podcast studio. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like it. Thanks to these guys. And I mean this sincerely. None of this would be possible without your support, as well as Florence County Legislative Delegation, McCall Farms, Micky Finn's, Pepsi of Florence, Carolina Bank, Francis Marion University, Marlboro MPD Electric Co-op, probably as big a part of our economic development team as you could possibly imagine. They were one of the companies, Chris, Rhett, I wanted a partnership with, because I'd watched them up close and personal when I was at the county level and state level, how devoted they were to economic development. So William Fleming and Jeff Singletary, and I mean, I don't want to leave. If I start naming somebody, I'll leave them off and they'll get mad with me. But thank y'all.
Yeah, they're a powerhouse.
Yeah, they are. Absolutely. Have a good day. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas
to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
And we'll talk again.